In 2024, your host, Mark Smith, celebrated 7 years of the Microsoft Business Applications podcast. Now, we step into a transformative 2025 with a fresh new name. Welcome to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast. Our new name reflects a broader vision, exploring the intersection of people, business, technology, and AI. You'll also hear from me, Meg Smith, a bit more as we launch a new exciting series called The AI Show.
Welcome to the Ecosystem Show. We're thrilled to have you with us. Here we challenge traditional mindsets and explore innovative approaches to maximizing the value of your software estate. We don't expect you to agree with everything. Challenge us, share your thoughts, and let's grow together. Now, let's dive in. It's showtime. Welcome back. It's Christmas week, and we'll probably consider this our final episode for 2024. I was going to say 2025, and I didn't want to lose a whole year ahead. You've got the three of us today. I'm always excited to be here. This is one of my favorite podcast experiences, is just hanging out with friends and chatting. Andrew, what's top of mind for you at the moment?
Well, top of mind for me is that you told me before we hit record that you have only ever canceled a podcast recording once. And what are you now at 700 episodes lifetime?
I think 639-ish or something. Yeah.
That's incredible. That is an achievement. But in other achievements, let's talk about the year behind us. Since I remember last year we did an episode, the Christmas episode was something like unboxing gifts from Microsoft, or which gifts from Microsoft we were most excited about in the year to come. I wish I had watched that episode, but I have a hard rule. I don't watch episodes of our own show. Let's talk about where we've been over the last 12 months.
I feel like it's been a long year.
We started a company this year, so that was...
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that Cloud Lighthouse was only started in January this year.
Yeah.
January 2024. Yeah.
Right? The ground that's been covered in this past year. That's why I feel it's a long year. I'm like, last year I was at Dynamics Minds. No, I wasn't. I was there this year. It was just so long ago, that event, Yeah.
It's pretty phenomenal that Dynamics Minds. So if we're talking about this is a game I like to play, right? Like, how do you sort of bend, what kind of mind bending, revelations come from either talking about how long something has been going on or how short something has been. And Dynamics Minds has become the go-to event worldwide in Microsoft land, in my opinion. I wish that Dynamics Minds, I think, would expand more into the Azure and the Fabric space. It's still very BizApps focused, but I've compared it in the past to like the combination of Davos and Burning Man for the Microsoft community.
Brilliant.
The first Dynamics Minds happened 18 months ago, right? Like there's only been two. They're planning for the third one. So there's something from 2025. 2025 is the year that Dynamics Minds took over became the place to be all year long in Microsoft land.
Yeah. What I like about it, it's technical through the day, and it's full like carnival experience in the evenings, right?
You're saying just in the evenings, but honestly, that music is blasting.
Yeah.
24
Bring your
hours.
earplugs, right? If you want to have an early night, you need to bring your earplugs.
Like, you need to be very, very prepared to not be able to take a nap unless you come with a sound machine with you. Because there's music all the time, and there's so much information that you need a little rest if you're old.
Andrew, you mentioned something there about, pivoting to covering more or a broader topic and audience. And, we discussed this last time that I've rebranded the podcast because I've noticed this massive move that although my career for the last 20 odd years has been very much in business applications, it's an internal phrase for Microsoft, and they're even walking away from it themselves this year. They're not using that phrase. There's been name changes internally. And Microsoft are really pivoting to becoming an AI company more than a software company. And they're seeing that as a redefining of who they are as an organization. So it's pretty much what I'm seeing internally. And hence why I think a lot of these events, are going to need to become much more focused at where the market is going, and when I think of, what we had with Dynamics and the Power Platform, and hey, I would still work on gigs, etc., related to those. It's not like that I'm leaving it behind, but I feel that everything is really evolving around a data landscape, right? And then that goes, okay, how do we extend it from an agentic point of view? What is AI's play in that data landscape? And using the full set of tools in the toolbox rather than just sticking with, I only use the hammer, I only do Power Apps, or I only use the drill, I only do Power Automate. And so I do think there's this much more holistic view we're starting to see across the market.
I think that there's a lot of truth in that. And for the second episode in a row, I will say good job on the name change for the podcast, for your other podcast, yes, I should say. So this is a topic that I've thought a lot about for several years. If you go back to my history before we started Cloud Lighthouse, I was at two partners going back. Well, I've been at other partners, but going back to 2017, I was at two partners between 2017 and early 2024. And at one of them, my job was to build a BizApps practice inside of an Azure partner. And at the other, my job was to build an Azure practice inside of a BizApps partner. Now we can dissect the ins and outs of that. All we want, though. I think that I can sum it up and say that it's a lot easier to build a BizApps practice inside of an Azure partner than to go the other way and take a BizApps partner into Azure land.
I mean, to be fair, you can even go more granular than that. And before having to build a whole Azure practice, you had to build a Power Platform practice within a Dynamics firm. That was super hard as well.
Building a Power Platform practice inside of a Dynamics firm is terrible. Like I'll go on record and say that is the most thankless job that anyone in Microsoft land can have. It's a terrible thing to do.
It's insane because it's hard to see the differences. Yeah, right.
So this brings to mind, right? Some earlier this year, Andrew, you said something about that partners in a way are set up all wrong in that they set their practices up around a technology. Mm-hmm. And was there really a need to move to set your practices up around industries? I think, did I get that right?
Yeah.
Tell me, if you had a clean sheet and somebody came to you and said, listen, here's $20 million and we need you to start a practice today, knowing what you know now and knowing what your observations of the future are. It's going to be a Microsoft-based technology, practice partner. How would you structure, and would you use the word practice? How would you position yourself knowing what you know at this point in time in December 2024? How would you do things differently? How would you structure that to really take advantage of where the world is going? And I'm talking about an implementation partner, something we don't do at Cloud Lighthouse. But how do you think in that respect?
This is such a fascinating question. And by the way, I have now remembered what it was that I wanted to, what I want to do with the next episode of the Ecosystem Show when we're back from the Christmas break. But this is fascinating to me. And in general, I'll make one general statement, and then I've got sort of 5 things that I would do and what I would focus on. First of all, I really don't like the model. And it's a very old model, and I know why we have it, but I do not like this model of having practices structured around technology areas, right? And to connect this back to how we started the episode, what will we remember about 2024? One of the things that I will remember about 2024 is that I think for the first time, I really started to see this idea that there is no such thing as BizApps, and there's no such thing as data platform, and there's no such thing as Azure, all sort of in isolation. I really started to see that catch on and gain traction amongst others, I think, who don't spend 90% of their working hours thinking about this. So that I think was really positive and promising. So first and foremost, if I were going to, in your scenario, if I were in that situation you described, I would not have a Power Platform practice. I would not have a BizApps practice. I would not have a Fabric practice, and I would not have an M365 or an Azure practice. I think I just named the big product buckets at Microsoft. I wouldn't do it, right? What I would do is I would focus on the whole of cloud, right? I would build, I do think it's very important to give a home, sort of like a family at work to your colleagues and to the people who work there, right? I think that everyone needs to feel like they belong somewhere, but I would try to build a structure of belonging that was less about discrete product areas and really build these intermingled teams, right? Where you're almost forcing the data platform guys and the dynamics guys to work together and to learn from one another. Listen, I think that the era of having a dynamics partner is long gone, right? If you are still sitting out there leading a dynamics partner, you are screwed. Like, you're just done. You may not realize it, but you are super done.
Yeah.
So first of all, focus on the whole of cloud. Another thing that I would do, and I'm going to move away from technology here, and I'm going to say I would create mechanisms to make it easier for colleagues to work across borders. Okay. If you look at any partner out there that does business in a significant way in more than 2 countries, right? They're in more than 1 country. They start to build these business units, right? And I get why the business unit is built, because oftentimes you need to incorporate in the country you're doing business in. But then these companies make it impossible or very, very difficult to build teams and to hire across borders, right? It's like the French business unit will serve the French customers and the Canadian business unit will serve the Canadian customers. And I think that not only are you doing a disservice to your customers, right, but you're really you're strangling yourself of talent that exists all around the world. And I think that's really foolish. I have 3 more, but I've done a lot of talking, so I'll give you back the floor.
I saw that firsthand in my time at IBM, is that they don't have an operating model that goes cross geos.
No.
And so what would happen is that there would be, let's say, a deal in Europe that I would have been the person that should have been put into play on the deal, right?
Yeah.
Because I was most knowledgeable around what they were wanting to do. But they have no way of having a charging system or how they do POs internally and how your billing codes work that would allow it to work across borders.
Right.
And so although they have this overarching name of IBM, and you could replace that with KPMG, EY, any of these big type partners, they have these pockets of talent, but it's not available to their customer base as a whole. It's only available in the geos. And one thing I learned about 8 years ago when I was involved in running a practice in Australia is that when I went into this organization, and we were doing as a company around 800 million a year across a lot of different things. It wasn't just, the Microsoft side of things. This company had been running around 30 odd years, but each state in Australia run their own business independent of every other state. And so it got to the point of absolute frustration for me. And because there would be talent in this state that were on the bench and you couldn't use them in this state because, no, we didn't do that, right? And so, or you had low-cost resource because the cost of living in an area was lower, that could work on a remote project for a couple of months, would be, the cost of transport, et cetera, not a big issue. And so I resigned from the company. It was actually the point that Microsoft hired me as an FTE. And I went to my boss and said, it was all done. The contracts were signed. I was going into Microsoft Australia to work at that time. And he said one thing to me, what would it take for you not to leave? And it was never a money issue because I was fine from that perspective. And I said, listen, I would want full autonomy across Australia to bring all the states under one practice. The thing is, we went from 5 million a year to 25 million a year by that simple one change, because we're able to scale and had the tech skills that we could bring to bear the right people to the right projects, no matter the geography. It was just, I know it works when you can work on this kind of, let's hire top talent around the globe, doesn't matter where they are, but we can bring them to bear on the projects where the customer needs it, rather than just because they live in that region.
We did this in we touched on this in the work life, as Will put it, the work life integration episode that we did a few weeks back. I think that it bears repeating, though, that one of the, I get why companies and government agencies, this has actually become big since Donald Trump's election, because the thought is that they're going to call government workers back into the office, right? And I just think that societies, I get why organizations have this urge to call workers back into the office. I think, there's a few reasons, and we don't need to rehash that. But one of the big societal benefits that I think we're missing out on here is that it has not been good. It has not been good to concentrate. It's been good in some ways, but it has not been good, arguably, for broader society to concentrate wealth and economic influence and corporate power. And I'm not talking about this like an anti-corporate warrior, right? I'm just saying, corporations have power and they get concentrated in cities. And, you look at the United States, which I think is a good example, because the United States is not like the United Kingdom where London dwarfs everything else. In the US, you've got New York and you've got Boston, you've got DC and Seattle and San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chicago and Denver. But you still have this relatively small number of specific cities where a lot of wealth has become concentrated. And I think that as society, we're just missing the boat if we're not creating the conditions for people to disperse and to, outdoorsy types to go live in the mountains and city types to go live in the cities, and, folks like me who grew up by the sea to go live by the sea. Because when we do that, we, as a society, we release all of this brain power and capital, and we disperse it throughout the land, and we create the conditions for people who do live in places without a corporate tech hub to become employed in some of these occupations. And we also inject money into communities that need it. And so I think that that's at the societal level. And then at the corporate level, right? This gets back to what I said. If I were starting an implementation partner from scratch, work across borders, take the borders down I'm going to get quoted here in a soundbite for talking about we should have open borders. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying make it easy for people to work together from wherever they live. And at a personal level, it creates so much freedom to go live the kind of life that you want. It seems like a no-brainer to me all the way around.
What do you think, Anna?
I think that, this is an important subject and a very complicated one. And I don't think that you can angle it from just one viewpoint.
Agreed.
Because some people do want to go and work from wherever, and others simply want to just not work at home. Not everybody has a nice home with an office and quiet time and stuff so that you can actually focus. Or not everybody, to give you my example, I'm not an extrovert. This means that when I have a problem, I'm going to dig into that problem like crazy until I find a solution. And I find it much easier once I've met my colleagues and we've spent some time face to face to actually reach out and ask for their help. Now, I'm not saying everybody should go back into the office, and I'm totally supporting the idea that we should be able to work from everywhere, and that definitely will nourish talent. But I do believe that none of the extremes are necessarily good. And I do believe that it's important to allow for some sort of middle ground.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we are an association based in London, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes back to base, or everybody meets at a conference, or everybody does something every 3 months of the year. It's important. It's like time when spent, for a lot of these things. And I do believe that unless you have a little bit of a middle ground, you're gonna go back into creating practices per technology.
Yeah.
Because people are going to start talking about what they have in common. And I will not have as much in common with the front end person as I do with the architect person, or like the data integration folk, and so on and so forth. So I'm missing out personally on an opportunity.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parves, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guide.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.
I agree. I'm not advocating for an extreme. I think that you're very correct there.
For a long time now, we've all known that the smartest person on this podcast is Anna. Without a doubt at all. And just sharing here, you can see that Anna has now decided to create her own little slice of digital world. And you can see annawelsh.com is the URL there. I highly recommend that you go and see her 15 years of experience is really getting distilled into the posts and stuff that she's writing on based on the top of mind projects, etc. I highly recommend you go check it out. It's great to see her got the site up. And as I say, she's the brightest mind amongst the 5 of us on the ecosystem show. So well done, Anna.
Oh, thank you. You are super kind to say that and to like bring up my website. It's, this year, because we're talking about this year has been full of changes, personally and professionally. And as we are talking about Microsoft's direction towards being an AI company and a much more technology integrating company, and not wanting to talk about BizApps as much, and how that is changing everything, like for me, it's just bringing it home. Like finally, I felt comfortable, listened, and almost embraced. So I've created that website to kind of put into words what I do day to day. I think that in the past, it wasn't maybe as listened to or as important, because everybody was focused on, I'm going to build Power Apps. I want to know everything about responsive Power Apps. How can we create, formulas? How can we integrate this Power App with like a connector and the end? Or I'm going to, do a bit of automation, and I'm going to be a Power Automate expert, or I'm going to do Dynamics, or I'm going to do Azure. I'm going to do data, et cetera, et cetera. And so nobody was really interested in this area of fusing our worlds. So my write-ups will be a lot about how do we integrate these things? When a person says, "Oh, I've been a developer for the past 20 years. You're not going to see me do Power Platform because that's just like drag and drop stuff, and you cannot even like put proper governance on it, or you cannot even do, proper ALM or proper testing, etc., etc. I'm here to kind of show them that you can actually do all of these things, and vice versa. When a person's like, oh, I've been doing Dynamics for the past such and such time, I don't see why you would ever write a line of code. I'm here to kind of emphasize the fact that if you are creating a form that has 200 fields, maybe you should take a step back and ask yourself some questions. Is there something that you should maybe be doing better? So this website is about technical assurance, technical excellence, making people talk to each other. Because within projects, organizations, and even geography-wise, the biggest problem is not technology or even AI. The biggest problem is the fact that people don't communicate well.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
And by the way, Anna, it prefers, drag and drop prefers to go by its Christian name of clicky, clicky, draggy, droppy, I believe is...
Yeah, I just find it foolish.
Shout out to Keith Wadling on clicky, clicky, draggy, droppy.
To be fair, because I've met so many absolutely brilliant people on both sides, and I just don't understand how they cannot see the brilliance in one another. Like, I don't know how you're not inspired.
This gets to... So Anna and I were in a meeting recently, and I want to be clear if the individual in question here is listening to this, that the individual in question here is a very intelligent, accomplished data platform architect, right? And but once again, I'm in a discussion where, we're in a discussion where the technologies at play, there's a massive thing being built in this particular organization that is going to take a combination of Power Platform, Fabric, and Azure integration services. And once again, we're sitting there with a senior data platform architect that doesn't know what Dataverse is, right? So I do think I want to be really clear that I think that the ignorance, and when I say ignorance, I mean simply like in its actual definition, right? That it is a lack of knowledge about things that you are not, that are not your expertise, right? But that lack of knowledge does go both ways. It's not just a bunch of, an army of Dynamics folk who don't know how Azure integration services work. It can also be a data platform architect that has never heard, or not never heard of, but doesn't know how Dataverse works. So yeah, I definitely think that this goes both ways. And these are important things that I started to see thaw a little bit in 2024.
So 2025. What are we thinking? What are we hoping for? What do we think will come to pass? What will we, as in the marketing is all around agents. The UIs are all being updated to away from copilots in many cases to the word agents, particularly I'm thinking Copilot Studio at the moment. Where do you reckon we'll be this time next year? Like, what would have changed? How do you think even the way we work? Do you think it's going to be like it'll be unrecognizable in the next 12 months? What do you think?
What do you think, Hannah?
I think the main things that we are doing today, we are going to have to do in 2025 as well. But I do think we may be able to do these things on steroids. Like I've started to look into agents, and maybe I'm like late to the party. I know there are already like a ton of training videos and a lot of things. Agents are not that easy.
Yeah, and remember the agents we have at the moment are agents 0.001.
They're not real. They're not actual agents for the most part. They're not.
No. They're a concept, they're a vision, they're a marketing, but I don't think it's their reality that you go, you know what? That thing's going to save me straight away 2 hours a day of something I do all the time. And I'm not talking about prompting and stuff, that
Right.
have their own agency to go, hey, that's made my life more efficient.
Right. So I think that by the end of 2025, we will have real agents.
Interesting.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I'm hoping for it.
What about you?
I think that one hope that I have is that by the end of 2025, we're talking less about AI, right? Not that AI will go away, not that AI will become less important. But my hope is that it becomes normalized in a way that it's not normalized today. And that's not to say that I think that people are using many of us are using, and I might even go so far, and especially with you starting to see things like Apple Intelligence arrive on, people's phones, right? That I would wager to say that even most of us are using AI at some point in a typical day, whether we know it or not. And I would like to see the normalization of all of this, progress a bit more, because I think that right now the shiny object effect has some pretty adverse consequences, right? One of them is that, and I see organizations doing this all the time, right? They want to build the AI thing and sort of just skip ahead. They want to skip the data platform. They want to skip the data consolidation. They want to skip the modernization, like the good old fashioned stuff that makes their cloud ecosystem work, and get to the shiny thing. And I think that that's in some ways a factor of the fact that it's still, and a product of the fact that this still is not normalized. I think that's a hope of mine for next year.
So along those lines, tell me how you feel about this.
I saw this and I loved
it. But doesn't this absolutely capture it? As like so much of what we've seen this year. Right. You look at it and I'm going, yeah, that's not AI. That's not AI. Like, that ain't AI. But so many companies, you're like on this bandwagon of this is the, our thing's got AI in it. And I'm just like, if in statements, that's all I'm really seeing here.
So for those who are listening to this and not watching the show, what we're looking at is a bar of soap, like a bar of hand soap, sitting on what looks like a bathroom sink with the plastic liquid soap pump stuck into the bar of hard soap. And it says, the caption is, legacy software companies adding an AI chatbot to their product. And I think, Mark, you're right. This captures so much, because what we're still in this era, and we've talked about this on the show before, right? We're still in this era, right? Like after the iPhone came out, and for a couple of years, what software developers tried to do is they tried to cram desktop apps into a smaller screen before they realized that the iPhone had altered the way that a human interacted with technology and interacted with information and functionality. I think that the killer feature for the smartphone actually was location awareness, right? Like that, once developers figured out how to work with that and how to build user experiences around that killer feature, everything changed. But right now we're still very much with AI in this realm of like, I'm using my app as normal. Oh, and there's this drawer over here that I can slide out and chat with the app. Yeah. And I think that's just, listen, AI and developers, society is going to figure out what the form factor for AI is. Mm-hmm. And it would be amazing if we got to this point in a year's time and felt like we had made some really significant progress beyond the chatbot.
Much more immersive, I feel, as in, I feel like, for AI to really serve me ultimately into where I'm thinking is it's got to have spatial awareness of my environment in real time. And what I'm observing in my world, whether it's been multiple screens, etc.
And what your preference is, what your style is. It needs to learn you.
Yes. everybody has a different way that they communicate more effectively. For me, when I'm receiving communication, auditory is the way that works best for me. But for somebody else, reading might be the way that works best for them, or kinesthetic. There's different ways that people, and I think that the ability for it to adapt to our style. One thing that I kind of have, I'm frustrated, I suppose, with some limitations I'm seeing at the moment, which I hope go away next year, is the concept of memory with AI.
Yeah.
Especially memory about me, like the amount of times I've repeated the same stuff I'd love it to remember that. And I know there's probably privacy implications and stuff that people are concerned around that. But I do really want an AI that the more I feed it about me, it has that context of that over time. And then I suppose the other part of it, which somebody wrote a post the other day on LinkedIn just saying, calling bullshit on Microsoft around Copilot. And he's, the dude's title was he's a guru in AI and he's doing these speaking engagements. And I looked 2 years back and he was flipping properties, right? Doesn't have a university degree, doesn't show any long-term in technology. He was flipping properties. That was his full time for the last 6 years.
Mark, don't be snotty about university degrees.
Yeah, but what I'm just like, no, I don't have one either. But what I'm saying is that
I don't care.
He made all these assertions against Microsoft and in an implementation of Copilot in the Australian federal government. And it's like heaps of people got on it, right? Like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, there's no critical thinking being shown here as into what he's been said. Like, he was like, the context window's not big enough. And I'm like, it's fine to say that. And like, I'm a big proponent of having large context windows because of the size of my prompts. But 99% of people, the context window is absolutely fine because they're only doing like 1 sentence prompts, But it's kind of like, if you just take one thing out of context, but people just buy into this stuff because he had a fancy title that he was given to himself.
Can I, and maybe this is a note to end on, right? But here's a wish of mine for 2025, right? Is that there's been this little cottage industry that I see on LinkedIn, and there are a few prominent purveyors of this attitude, right? Where almost everything I see them post is negative and critical and complaining about whatever it is, right? Like, and I'm talking about and I'm not talking about complaining about every which topic. I'm talking very specifically about technology and technology broadly, AI broadly, maybe Microsoft in particular, right? So I would love to see a little more. I love the thinking. I love folks not being sheep, right, to this technology. But I would like to see a little more offering up of ideas and a little less trying to, tear down the latest product evolution or the latest thing that people are experimenting with. This is an era of experimentation. So a little more building and a little less complaining, folks.
I mean, you see these things because people click on them.
Right, because that's my news feed.
And that's your own news feed. And it's your own news feed because people who you follow, they also read the same stuff and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not an expert in social media, but I do not by any means. But I do know that news and bad news attracts followers.
It's so true.
We like
it's so true.
Can I read you the comment of the week that I got on one of my videos on YouTube? Here's the comment. Have you found a solution to that bald-ass head? The only missing answer is yours when I ask where your 2 eyebrows went. I can see about 50 layers of wrinkles on your noggin. Can you peek them back a bit as well? The only consultation is hairline can get it to the time of death from your local nuance. It's these run 2 words together. How can you talk about solutions that stick when you can't even make your hair stick?
Oh my God.
I'm like, there's some people out there that what they get their pleasure in, right? That was on an AI post video that I did, one of my short videos. That was like, that's a long written post, right? I took its time to write that. And I'm like, I just went back and went, that is an outstanding comment. That was
Was that like one of Vladimir Putin's agentic chatbots got bored?
It was from the handle was Sebera Bafar 8706 was the commenter.
That sounds super legit, Mark.
Yeah, but how like to take the time to comment on my appearance, and I'm happy he commented on my appearance in a way, because I know that a lot of females, when they post online, people don't even talk about what they're talking about. They just attack them on their looks. So I feel like,
you aged badly. Like, you don't look nice, or like.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that Anna is not only the smartest member of the podcast, but also the most beautiful.
Exactly.
That's objective.
Agreed.
I mean, look at the competition, Anna. So,
yeah,
I mean.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw an early video of yours this week, Andrew, and wow. Yeah.
What we And on that note, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another year. We'll be back in January with another crank at things. I've already booked my tickets to Dynamics Minds. They're going to be there, so I'm looking for that epic event. I saw 2 sessions of yours get approved today, so I know you guys will be speaking at that event. Not saying I was involved in the decision process, but I was involved in the decision process. But anyhow, great to see you there, and I look forward to it's probably the next time we're going to connect in person in IRL.
Was one of the sessions the one about the can we get a good the Microsoft partner is dead?
The Microsoft partner is dead. It's funny because it'll be the year anniversary of that post.
It is a year anniversary. Yeah, that's
so
right.
It'll be epic. Anyhow, ciao guys. We'll see you around.
Bye guys.
Thanks for tuning into the Ecosystem Show. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and thought-provoking. And maybe you had a laugh or two. Remember, your feedback and challenges help us all grow. So don't hesitate to share your perspective. Stay connected with us for more innovative ideas and strategies to enhance your software estate. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries and creating value. See you on the next episode.
Support for this episode comes from Justin Welsh's guide to finding your voice on LinkedIn. When I worked at Google, I never posted on LinkedIn because I didn't think anyone wanted to hear what I had to say. Then I took Justin's course, and it gave me the confidence to start sharing authentically. Check it out if you've been wanting to show up on LinkedIn but don't know how to start. Sign up using the link in the show notes.